The most valuable asset you can build online today isn't a product or a funnel. It's a cult-like personal brand, and nothing even comes close. If you create content, whether you're a founder, a consultant, or a creative, building a personal brand should be your #1 priority. So the question becomes, is there a repeatable blueprint for building a cult-like personal brand? And the answer is yes, a very clear one. Over the last few years, I've studied hundreds of the top creatives and worked with over 350 execs and entrepreneurs to build massive brands just by showing up online. And what's interesting is they all follow the same patterns. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through a simple 5-step playbook to build a personal brand that attracts attention, builds trust, and turns strangers into fans. And if you care about growing online, this will be one of the most useful videos you've ever watched. I'm Sam Winsbury. I've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs to build their personal brands, and this is the exact system I use with them and for myself. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to build your own. Now, the thing that you've got to realize when it comes to building a cult-like personal brand is that this is not about pretending to be someone you're not or forging a false representation of yourself. Actually, personal branding is just about framing the unique combination of skills, experience, value, personality that you have, right? And no one can compete with that. In markets where there is increasing competition every single day, there are more and more channels that you need to be on. The only thing people can't compete with is your unique combination of skills, experience, expertise, and personality. They can copy your funnels, they can copy your product, they can copy your website, but they cannot copy you, or at least they cannot do you as well as you do. So when you think about personal branding, really focus on framing the unique value you have to offer in the best way possible. The word framing here is really important because I see so many people who have so much to offer the world, but it almost feels like their industry or their niche is best kept secret because they're not talking about it online. And if you're not talking about your work online, it's pretty much invisible. There is no nobility in being your industry's best kept secret. So really we need to just take the skills, experience, values, and personality you actually have and frame them in the best way possible in order to build the reputation you deserve. Otherwise, you're just going to keep getting overlooked whilst competitors or other audience members in your niche just go for maybe your competitors who aren't actually as good as you, right? So we need to think about how we frame the unique value we offer. One of the reasons this is so important is because the messenger matters, right? And if you want to build a cult-like personal brand, you need to be seen as someone worth listening to, because who says something matters just as much as what they said. That is, when you publish content online, it matters who you are or who people perceive you to be, not just what you're saying. That's why going straight to content and trying to fix your content isn't necessarily the hack when it comes to building a cult-like personal brand. It's actually nailing down your positioning. I'll give you an example. If I asked you, which of these two guys here would you rather listen to for advice on your investments? I would put money on the fact that you're going to say the guy on the right, Warren Buffett. You're not going to trust your mate from down the pub as much as Warren Buffett. If they gave you the exact same piece of advice, if they shared the exact same post on Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn, whose would you take with a bit more gravitas and credibility? Whose would you actually listen to? It's probably going to be Warren Buffett, right? Because he's positioned as someone worth listening to on investments. You're not going to listen to your mate from down the pub as much. And for those of you that think, don't need that, I'll just focus on delivering a great product. Well, if you keep doing that, it's not going to be clear what you do, why you're credible, or how to actually work with you. And you're going to keep getting overlooked whilst lower quality competitors steal up mindshare in your niche. And there are 3 elements that we use to build out world-class positioning and be seen as someone worth listening to. And as soon as you become seen as someone worth listening to, your content is going to become magnetic and you're going to have this cult-like following of people that buy into absolutely everything you say because of who they perceive you to be. And those 3 elements are promise, proof, and packaging. And I'm going to show you how we build out all of those for our clients in this video. The first thing we do before we actually get into building those is we need to map out the market. Now, it's really useful to use a SWOT analysis in order to do this. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what you need to do is map out these 4 quadrants for your own niche and for yourself and your own business, and think about what your current strengths and weaknesses are, first of all, in your niche. What are you doing really well? What do you have to work with? What could contribute to having a really strong personal brand that you're working with currently? This could be the amount of experience you've got. It could be some high profile clients you have. It could be that you've got some really good IP attached to your business that you can leverage for your personal brand. And what are your weaknesses? What are the areas where currently maybe you're not doing as well? Maybe you haven't got loads and loads of clients, or you don't have loads of case studies you could use. Maybe you're quite young. That might be perceived as a weakness. Could also be a strength if you flip how you position it. After you've done your strengths and your weaknesses, which are things that currently exist, things that are currently true, you want to think about opportunities and threats. And these are things that could present themselves in the future. So an opportunity is something that you could turn into a strength in the future, and a threat is something that could contribute to a weakness in the future. AI is a big one for a lot of people right now. AI could be both an opportunity and a threat for you. Other opportunities you might have are potential clients that you're going to be signing in the future. It could be partnerships that you could be able to generate. Threats could be things like rising competition, commoditization of your industry. There are a number of things that could come in here. It's really important to understand what you're working with, what your strengths, weaknesses are, and what you need to be aware of in the future. Because when we actually build out our promise, proof, and packaging, we probably want to frame these around the current market and how it currently exists. You also want to get clear on your profile. So step 2 of this process is to build out a really clear audience profile. You cannot build a cult-like personal brand if you don't know who you're looking to build an audience of in the first place. There is just no way you can do it. And actually, one of the keys to building a cult-like personal brand is understanding the pains and desires of your target audience. So yes, you should understand the demographics of your audience so you know how to target them, how to speak to them, how to talk in a way that's going to relate to them, and how they're going to resonate to it. So you need to understand their graphics, what sort of age range they are, maybe their gender, location, these sorts of things. But you also need to know more psychographic factors as well, such as their goals and desires. What do they really want to achieve in the world? If you can help someone achieve one of their goals, they're going to follow you and buy into you and consume your content for the rest of your life. And they're going to keep following you and keep buying your stuff over and over again. Also, their pains and problems. Using pains and problems is often actually stronger than goals and desires because we have a stronger urge to move away from points of pain than we do to move towards goals and desires that we have. So pains and problems, really important to understand so that you can help your audience solve them. And if you're continuously helping your audience solve their pains and problems, of course they're going to follow you. Of course they're going to buy into everything you say. So list out as many of these as we can, and you can put it into a really simple quadrant like this. The last thing you want to build out is objections and fears. So in this journey people have going from their pains and problems where they are now over to this place where they've reached their goals and desires, they have a number of objections and fears, things that they don't want to go through over the course of this journey. And these objections and fears will prevent people from really buying into what you say, taking your advice, and ultimately buying from you. So you need to overcome those objections and fears in your content and with your product, okay? Really important to do this with your content. You also want to make sure you're making it clear that you can help them do that without going through their objections and fears in your positioning. So list out a number of objections and fears that they might have to going through this transition from the pains they're in now to their goals and desires. Let's take a really, really simple example. If I was a personal trainer, for example, one of the pains or problems that my audience might be facing is that they don't feel confident when they look in the mirror because they think they're out of shape. One of their goals and desires is to look in the mirror with confidence and be able to walk out the house knowing that they look great. So we've got the current pain, they're not confident, they think they're overweight, and their goal and desire, walking out the house with complete confidence and having a strut in their step, right? That's the transformation people want to go through. But one of the objections or fears people might have in making that transformation is they don't want to go on these crazy diets. So a big objection they have is they don't want to eat salad every day, like 3 times a day for the next 6 months. Maybe they also don't know how to use gym equipment, so they don't want to train in the gym. Maybe they don't have time. Maybe they're scared of actually entering a gym because they find it quite intimidating. All of these are objections and fears that people might have. So if I don't address those through my content when I'm building my personal brand, people are never really going to buy into me. However, if I can solve them for my audience or give them a way to go from that pain of not feeling confident to the goal and desire they have of walking outside full of confidence without going through those fears, they are really going to buy into me and love everything that I do. And that in itself could separate me from the sea of competition in my niche. So the second thing you want to do, step 2, is to build out a really clear audience profile. Once you've built out your audience profile, step 3 is to build your industry analysis. So what you want to do is look at other people in your niche and understand what's working well for them, what's not working, what you like about them that you might want to emulate, and what you really want to avoid doing. And this is going to help you distinguish yourself from everybody else in the space. Because truth is, you're probably not the only one posting content in your niche. And if you sound like everyone else, you're going to blend in and it's going to be impossible for you to build that cult-like following you really want. That said, you can also learn from what other people are doing. And rather than going through months and months of trial and error and making the same mistakes, you can simply analyze them to understand what's working well for them and what you want to emulate for them, and you can bring that into your own brand. That's not to say you're copying them, you're just taking certain elements from lots of different profiles and building them into your own positioning. Of course, if they don't align with who you are, you're not going to emulate them. So this is never going to become inauthentic. But you want to break down at least 3 big personal brands in your niche and analyze what's working, what's not working, what you want to emulate and avoid. And you can build it into a table like this to make it really clear how you want to build your personal brand. So for example, for Profile 1, one thing that might be working is their video content is very raw and not overly polished. Maybe that's resonating with the audience and you quite like it. One thing that might not be working for them is the content topics are a bit boring and generic. So you want to make sure you're making your content more engaging and interesting. One thing you might want to emulate is the authenticity they have in their videos. One thing you might want to avoid is talking about the same topics that every other person in the niche is talking about. So you want to go through this process and list out a number of things. Don't just do one for each of these, list out a number of things for each of the profiles. And as I said, try and do at least 3 profiles when you're doing this. This is going to give you a really clear picture of the industry and make sure that you're not just a copycat version of someone else. I promise you the worst thing you can do for your personal brand is be the second best version of somebody else's personal brand. It's never going to work and you're certainly not going to build a cult-like following. Once you've started to bring these together, we can actually get into building your positioning, which is stage 4 of building your personal brand. We're actually going to build out your promise, proof, and packaging and position you as somebody worth listening to. Just before we do that, what I want you to do is get really clear on your 1 to 3 year goals for your business or your career or your personal brand and list them out. Because ultimately the promise, the proof, and the packaging statements that we build out in a moment are designed to help you get towards your goal. They are designed to help you achieve your goal. So this is where we're going to actually get a little bit selfish and think, what do I want to actually achieve? And how do I need to be seen in order to achieve that? So list out your goals, because the next thing we're going to do when we build out promise, proof, and packaging is we are going to build them in a way that gets us towards that goal. We're going to think, right, if with this goal in mind, how do I need to be seen in order to get there? So let's say maybe you want to scale to 10K per month with your business. You want to reach 50,000 followers. I'd say if you've got 50,000 followers, you should probably be a bit further than 10K a month. But anyway, and the third one is you want to be speaking on stages around the world. So those are my 3 business goals for the next 12 months, let's say. Pretty arbitrary goals, but they might actually be similar to the sorts of goals that you have. Now, when we build our positioning, we are all focused on how do we actually create a position that's going to get us to this stage. So if I want to scale my business to 10K a month, for example, I know that I probably need at least, let's say, at least 5 people to be paying me $2,000 a month, or maybe I need 100 people every month to pay me $100. So we can work out exactly what we need in order to achieve that. And if I need 100 people to pay me $100, I think my maths is correct there, yeah. Then I know that I need to be reaching a certain number of people and I need them to trust me as an expert in this niche. I need them to see me as someone they can trust to the extent that they will give me $100. So we can start building out all of these things that people need to see us as. If I want to reach 50,000 followers, I need to be somewhat seen as someone that is of value, someone that shares interesting content. If I want to be speaking on stages, I need to be seen as a good public speaker. So this is a really key one. If I want to be on stages, people need to see me as someone that knows how to talk, that has confidence, that maybe can speak on camera already, suggests I might be able to speak to an audience. So we can get really clear on how people actually need to see us. What we're then going to do is build out the 3 most important statements of your positioning. I'm going to start with your promise. Now, your promise statement is all about making it clear to your audience why they should follow you in the first place, why they should follow, engage, even buy from you down the line. Okay, so this gives them the selfish reason why they should do it. And if you want to build a cult-like following, it needs to be clear what reason there is to actually follow you in the first place. And for this, we want to really focus in on the transformation we're going to go through. So we want to tell people exactly what they're going to get out of engaging with us, following us, buying from us. There are 3 things that we include here. We address the audience, the transformation we're going to take them on, and we pre-solve the major objections that they might have. If you think back to one of the earlier stages of this, you've already done the hard work here. So remember, in this audience profile, you've already done the hard work. You already know exactly who you're looking to reach from the demographics. You know the transformation that you're going to take people on because you've already listed out their pains and their goals and desires, and you know the major objections they might have. So really, we're just taking this audience profile and putting it into a really clear, compelling statement so that people know exactly why they should follow us. You can use an I help statement here if you want. So you'd say, I help audience to transformation. So that might be go from unconfident to confident in 90 days without, so here's where you enter the objection, the major objection they have, without using any crazy diets. So I help 30 to 50-year-old working mums to regain their confidence. That suggests that they've lost it. So regain their confidence in 90 days without going on any crazy diets. There's a really clear promise that I might use as a personal trainer that is going to get my audience to really buy into what I actually have to offer. There is a selfish reason for them as to why they would follow me. So once you've got your promise in place, you now need some proof, because anyone could make this promise. Right? Anyone could make this promise. You need to be seen as trustworthy and credible to actually help people fulfill it. And this is where the messenger comes in really important. Remember that example I gave right at the start where we talked about your mate from down the pub versus Warren Buffett. One of these people is seen as a credible messenger, someone that you can trust, and one of them isn't, right? So if you want people to take the advice that you're sharing and actually consume the content you're publishing online with gravitas and actually take it seriously, you need to have a really clear proof statement that shows people why they should listen to you. And there are a few things that you can use in order to do this. You can use milestones in your career or business, or you can use results. So result would be a specific thing you've achieved for a specific client. For example, I helped Sarah lose 8 pounds in the last 90 days. That would be a result. A milestone is the summation of all of the results you've achieved. So milestone might be, I've helped 300 people lose weight. I'm going to keep going with the personal training example because I think it's an easy one. So this would be like 300 clients, whereas a result would be like a specific case study. And here you could use other things like the number of years you've been in the industry. You could use maybe some of the names of key clients that you've worked with as the milestones. There are a number of things that you can use for each of these, but there needs to be a clear reason why you are credible. What have you actually achieved in your career that would make someone go, yeah, I trust you for this topic? The final one you could use is social proof. So if you've appeared in any major publications, that's always a good one. You'll see people use Forbes a lot. As soon as someone lands a feature in Forbes, they're always like, Forbes featured so-and-so. And that's because it's a lot of social proof. People trust it. If people trust Forbes, they're going to trust you. So you can use social proof as your proof statement as well. But it's really important you have at least one of these that's really clear and compelling and positions you as someone worth listening to on this subject. The final thing is what we call packaging. Now, packaging is what makes you unique. So packaging is going to distinguish you from everyone else in the industry, because at this stage, we've built a really strong promise. There's a clear reason why people should listen to us. We've got our proof statement, which gives us credibility, but still there might be other credible people in our industry that have a similar promise to us. How do we distinguish ourselves and make us completely unique and irreplaceable and therefore magnetic and get this cult-like following? Well, we need to be seen as something that, or someone that no one else can compete with. And there are a few ways you can do this. You can use a unique mechanism. So if you have a particular process or a system for helping your audience, helping your clients and getting results that no one else uses, maybe you've got some nice IP around it, you can use the unique mechanism. Okay, so maybe I have a specific training formula that no one else is using. I could use that. You could just have a really unique personality. So your personality is particularly extreme. Maybe you're massively extroverted. Maybe you want to flip that on its head and you're actually very, very introverted. And maybe that's the reason why people should follow you. If you have quite an extreme personality that stands out and people often tell you your personality is quite out there, you can use that as well. Or you can just use points of difference in either you personally or your product or service. So any way that you think differently, act differently, or work differently to your competitors, you can use that as a point of difference, something that distinguishes you from them. And you want to make that really, really clear in your positioning and in your profiles if you want people to actually engage in your content. And by the end of building out these 3 statements, we have a clear reason why people should listen to us, why they can trust us on this topic, and why we're different from everyone else in the industry. Of course, as you build these out, you want to constantly refer back to the industry analysis, the audience profile you built, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that you have. And if you're constantly referring back to those as well as the goals that you've built, you're gonna have really, really compelling promise, proof, and packaging statements. And those three things alone are gonna make you completely magnetic to your audience. We can take this upper level though with what we call positioning cues. And this is step 5 of building a cult-like personal brand. Positioning cues take your personal brand to another level by using other objects or things in order to build up your own trust and authority. So one way we can do this is we can associate with certain things. There are lots of things you can associate, but they'll come into 4 categories: people, products, publications, and places. Brand really, and it's the same for personal brand, is simply built through association. So a brand is just an association between certain things, right? Between a person and a feeling or a product or a place, for example. And you can use these 4 to really build up positive associations for your personal brand, right? What sort of other people online do you want to be associated with? What sort of products do you resonate with or reflect your brand? And can you make sure you're using those in your content? Publications, where do you want to be featured? You know, would Forbes reflect positively on your personal brand? Maybe you need to be in women's health, for example. What publications would build up your authority and make people buy into you? And what sort of places? For example, if you're someone in law or finance and you're in quite a corporate space, being seen around London and having lots of imagery of you around the city of London would probably be quite strong. You probably wouldn't want to use that if you were the personal trainer. You want the place that you are seen in to be the gym the whole time, right? You wouldn't want to be seen walking around the city, unless maybe you were targeting busy corporate professionals. Okay, so think about the people, products, publications, and places you want to be associated with, because you can use all of those to build up a positive perception of yourself. On the flip side, what are the enemies you want to essentially rally against with your audience? Now, there's a great quote from Blair Warren, and part of that quote says, people will do anything for those that help them throw rocks at their enemies. So if you can build a common enemy between you and your audience, and you can essentially knock that enemy or help them get over that problem they're having, or throw rocks, as the quote goes, at those enemies, you're going to build a really deep connection with your audience. You might have had this when you've bonded with someone you've never met over a mutual hatred for something else. It is particularly prevalent in like football clubs, for example. There'll often be 2 fans of different clubs, but they both have the same mutual hatred for another football club. And that can join those 2 people together. So people will do anything for those that throw rocks at their enemies. What are the key things that you want to rally against with your audience? That could be a certain way of thinking, a certain way of doing things that's common in the industry that your audience don't like. It could be a certain type of person in the industry. Whatever it is, think about what are the common enemies you'll have with your audience. Also, personal points of view. So your point of view is, again, something that continues to develop your uniqueness and something that will continue to separate yourself from everyone in the industry. And to be honest, the most magnetic and strongest personal brands are the ones that aren't afraid to get off the fence. If you're constantly sitting on the fence and you don't have strong points of view, it's going to be very hard for people to actually really connect with you. And to be honest, if some people aren't disagreeing with you on your points of view, you're probably not building connection with anyone else either. So having really strong points of view is a great way to do that. I recommend you spend some time thinking about what your strongest points of view are, where you can really get off the fence and take a side. And don't be afraid to share those. And the final one is admitted weaknesses. Now, this is a really powerful one, because if you admit to having certain weaknesses, people will believe your truth claims about your strengths a lot more. Okay, so you want to make sure the weaknesses you're admitting are kind of menial and trivial, so that people believe your claims about your strengths a lot more. You know, if I said to you, look, I'm the best personal trainer in the world, I don't know how much you'd actually believe me. Of course I'm going to say that, right? But if I said to you, look, I am a terrible dancer, but I know my way around the gym like no one else does, you suddenly start to believe me a lot more. Because I've admitted to having a weakness, you believe what I'm saying about my strengths is true. And the weakness here, that I'm not a very good dancer, is true, by the way, is menial. It doesn't actually impact my ability to deliver personal training. So you want to make sure the weaknesses you are admitting don't actually affect how people perceive you in what you're actually doing and the product or service you actually provide. So list out those 4 things: who you associate with, common enemies, your personal points of view, and your admitted weaknesses. And in your content, these are going to take your promise, proof, and packaging to a different level and build a wildly magnetic personal brand. And look, if you found this useful and you're looking to build your personal brand yourself, I have loads more videos on my channel to help you do so. So click around here, you can watch the next one, and I promise you're going to love it as well.